In fact, Lawn Boy is so easy to pull that about the only more easier is a Lawn Boy electric start.
Jump!
So this year,
I won't do this.
don't pull a muscle. Pull an easy-to-start Lawn Boy at your Lawn Boy dealer today.
This Easter, Red Owl suggests putting all of your eggs into one basket during Red Owl's Cash Dividend Easter Savings Hunt. This week, get Valdor Gray AA large eggs for just 19 cents a dozen, or the 1-pound carton of Land O'Lakes Gray AA butter for just 79 cents. Cash in on the many exceptional values in store for you during Red Owl's Cash Dividend Easter Savings Hunt. We're out to make you a Red Owl shopper this week, every week.
How do you get shirts so clean, Mr. Lee?
Ancient Chinese secret.
My husband, some hotshot. Here's his ancient Chinese secret, Calgon. Calgon's 2 water softeners soften wash water so detergents clean better. In hardest water, Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner. We need more Calgon.
Ancient Chinese secret, huh?
Calgon helps detergents get laundry up to 30% cleaner.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Good afternoon and welcome to Midday on this April 13th, 1979. Good Friday. You're looking at the 112-foot bell banner which stands in front of St. John's Abbey here at Collegeville, Minnesota. We're on the grounds of not only the monastery of St. John's Abbey, but also the St. John's University.
And part of is the men's chorus, and for the last couple of years in observance of Good Friday, they've joined us in the studio. Well, this year we decided to record them here at St. John's.
And we'll be hearing from the men's chorus. We'll also be taking a look around this area in just a few moments. Right now, let's check up on the late news.
Good afternoon, everyone. Breckenridge, Minnesota residents are sandbagging and diking today after a couple of hours break last night in their effort to protect their homes from flooding. The city is located where 3 rivers converge. All 3 rivers are over flood stage. They are the Otter Tail, the Bois de Sioux, and Red Rivers. They are about 4 feet above flood stage at this hour. The National Weather Service says the Red River will probably keep rising for the next 2 or 3 days. WCCO's Carol Ackright is in Breckenridge-Wahpeton area today, and we'll have her reports on later news shows today. Minnesota Republicans say they will host a 5-day conference of national Republican leaders this June. The get-together is expected to draw some 1980 presidential hopefuls. State party leaders say the events will amount to a kickoff for their 1980 campaign. A plan to keep more minority teachers on the payrolls in Minneapolis is being sponsored by the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers. The plan being studied by the legislature would exempt Minneapolis schools from the so-called last hired, first fired seniority law. The teachers union lobbyist Henry Winkles is reportedly organizing teachers across the state to oppose the plan to save minority teachers' jobs. Canadian utility officials have decided to reduce the size of the Atikokan, Ontario power plant by 1/2. Minnesota Congressman Bruce Vento says the plant that is would be reduced from an 800 megawatt facility to 2 200 megawatt units. U.S. officials have been concerned that 2 coal-burning plants in that area would create pollution problems in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. The plant is being built about 35 miles north of the Minnesota border. I'll have more midday news in just a few minutes.
Fresh Florida grapefruit. It's a real-life fruit, so treat it like a real-life fruit.
Serve me up, I'm a real-life fruit, so treat me like a real-life fruit. Peel me, wedge me, take a bite, you'll love me, dessert me, box me, spoon me up, it's a real-life fruit.
Look for the Florida grapefruit display at all Red Owl this week.
That's a crime.
Yeah?
You're at Kentucky Fried Chicken without trying the original recipe.
I happen to like the extra crispy. Are you saying there's a difference?
Oh, yes. Original recipe's the only chicken with the Colonel's 11 secret herbs and spices, and pressure fried, tender and juicy.
Team 10, report in.
My original recipe.
Evidence.
The Colonel's juicy, tender, original recipe. Who can resist tenderness?
I love working in the city. I grew up in a small town and spent summers on my grandpa's farm, so I do know the difference between a corn picker and a hay mower. And job service matched me to my new job. A private secretary to a farm machinery manufacturer. Job service. They match more good people to good jobs than anybody. Fast, and with no fee. Good job, job service.
Come into job service. Have we got a match for you?
In case you've forgotten, the income tax deadline is just around the corner, and about 350,000 Minnesotans are putting the final touches on state income tax forms before mailing them this weekend. The State Revenue Department says the refunds are averaging about $243 this year. Last year, the average was only $204. The state has been getting those refunds out in about 31 days after being received, but with the last-minute crush, any refunds now will take about 5 to 6 weeks to process and return. The federal tax boys say they expect up to 95,000 Minnesotans to file federal returns this weekend. The deadline, remember, is midnight Monday for filing both federal and state returns because April 15th falls on a Sunday. This Friday, the 13th, just happens to be the birthday of the $2 bill, a bill that some folks say is unlucky. Diane Sawyer in Washington has that story.
It all began for a noble reason. The government wanted to save some money. And since $2 bills cost exactly the same to print as ones, the $2 note is a better value. So 3 years ago today, the first of 525 million crisp new $2 bills were issued. But it wasn't long before Treasury officials got the bad news. The $2 bill is a slow-motion boomerang. The Federal Reserve no sooner gives them to the banks who give them to the customers than the customers give them back to the banks who give them back to the Federal Reserve. Today, over half those $2 bills gather dust in bank and government vaults. Not everyone dislikes them, but those who do are vocal. In the early 1900s, the $2 bill was associated with racetracks and bordellos. It was gambling money, tainted money, and some historians say the new bills can't live down their old reputation. At racetracks these days, the odds run against the bill, about 2 to 1.
I like to get rid of it as soon as I get it.
Why?
Because bad luck, and I might get it mixed up with a pot.
In fact, the $2 bill is a failure by almost every standard.
We had a robbery not too many months ago, and the robber did, in fact, get behind the teller line, get into the cash drawer. And he took every bill, every 1 and 20, everything but the $2 bills.
Unless people start using the $2 bill, the government plans to ditch the experiment and let its current stock of them simply fray and tear and wear out. Which means by the end of the 1980s, the $2 bill will be once again a curiosity for collectors, a faint and distant memory. Diane Sawyer, CBS News, Washington.
In case you're wondering, there are no stock market quotations today. Wall Street is closed for Good Friday. The forecast for this afternoon says we will have a 30% chance of occasional light rain under mostly cloudy skies. Our high for the day will be near 50. Tonight we will have a 30% chance of rain and a low in the middle 30s. Tomorrow it will be mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of rain. Highs will be in the low 50s. Right now in the Twin Cities, the temperature is 43 degrees. The winds are southwesterly at 21, gusting to 25, and the skies are cloudy. Bill and Cindy will have more on Midday in just a moment.
These two rigs represent the option you have when applying Dual. Because Dual is the grass herbicide you can incorporate or spray on the surface. So with Dual, you decide whether to incorporate or surface apply. Whether I put Dual on the surface or incorporate Dual, I use the same rate. That's the Dual option. Dual, the grass herbicide you can spray on the surface or incorporate.
Good news for farmers. Dual herbicide is now labeled for soybeans. Moving to sports.
Chuck, did you say Dual is now new for soybeans?
Right. Now in sports...
I always thought Dual was a corn herbicide, Chuck.
It is, but now you can use Dual on corn and soybeans.
Soybeans, too.
Right.
Wow.
In sports...
Can you surface apply or incorporate Dual at the same rate like in corn?
Yes.
Really?
In basket...
Oh, what a bummer.
No time for sports.
It's too bad. Good night, Chuck.
There's explosive entertainment on the next Mike Douglas show when handsome teen idol Sean Cassidy co-hosts.
I'll get old and ugly pretty soon.
Plus the big-time humor of John Biner.
Now the economy. Let's talk about shortages. Who knows more about shortages than I do?
Sean Cassidy on the next Mike Douglas show.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Father Abbott, know the word monastery, I think perhaps very few of us numerically actually know what a monastery is. Could you explain it for us?
To give a somewhat adequate explanation, I think we would have to go back to the very beginning of monasticism, which began in the 3rd century with dedicated spiritual leaders, followed by a group of monks, people who wanted to learn the spiritual life from them. This grew into a community of men then living together under a spiritual leader. Saint Benedict came along in the 6th century and wrote what he said a rule for cenobites, which means a group of men living in common under a rule and an abbot. And he said his purpose in writing this rule was to establish a school of the Lord's service. And the members would find entrance into this school of the Lord's service, provided they manifested an eagerness for prayer, for work, for what we call lectio divina, which is a Latin term for spiritual reading, stressing particularly study of the scriptures. That purpose has remained constant in Benedictine history from the 6th century, the time of Benedict, to the present day. Saint Benedict did not prescribe any specific work for his monks, but throughout history, education has been one of the primary purposes, or primary functions, I should say, of monasteries. And some of the centuries of the Middle Ages are known as the Benedictine centuries because of the educational work preserving the heritage of the past and so forth that the monasteries have done. St. John's, then, is a Benedictine institution following the rule of Benedict, invited to Minnesota by the Bishop of St. Paul at the time, back in 1856, invited specifically to provide for the German settlers who were coming into the state and the Indians to provide for their spiritual welfare. But immediately upon coming, well, I shouldn't say immediately, within 4 months after they were here, they opened a small school. But more important, they came in May of 56. In November of 56, they petitioned the territorial legislature for a charter. 1856, which charter was granted on March the 7th, 1857, therefore even before Minnesota was a state, to found a religious and educational and charitable institution to be known as St. John's Seminary, which title was changed in the 1880s, I've forgotten the date, to St. John's University. But the religious house, known as the Abbey, conducts the university, the preparatory school.
Oh, the happiness of the man who has filled his quiver with these arrows. He will have no cause for shame when he disputes with his foes in the gateways. With the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, give praise forever. Amen.
Is it difficult to keep a monastery relevant and significant in today's changing church and society?
I don't think so, because at least in our monastery here, so many of the monks are well educated and have had the opportunity to receive their education at some of the most prestigious American universities as well as those in Europe. And the fact that we do conduct a university, a liberal arts college, but with a grad school, it helps keep us, I think, alive to the needs of the present-day world.
As we are watching this program, it is Good Friday. Father Abbott, do you have any thoughts about this Good Friday on this day?
Good Friday is part of the Lenten season and growing toward the climax of the season emphasizes, of course, that which Lent itself emphasizes, the importance of our recognizing the fact of sin, of evil. But the Church, throughout Lent, and I think particularly on Good Friday, though a superficial viewing would seem to indicate that the emphasis is all on the evil with Christ's death, but the Church never loses sight of the fact that it is through Christ's death that the resurrection has come, that victory over sin and death has come.
Beige, grass cloth.
I don't know anymore. At Plywood, Minnesota, we have a new way to look at wallpaper. On walls, and you take it home today, not 3 weeks from now. Leftovers, we'll even take back a single roll. Now, isn't that better than... How about this one?
That's my checkbook.
There's always a room for improvement. Plywood, Minnesota.
Knock, knock.
Well, look who's here.
Don't tell me you smell the Hills Brothers coffee next door.
No, but now that you mention it, it smells terrific. And don't mind if I do. This Hills Brothers coffee is the first coffee I've ever tasted that tastes as good as it smells.
That's because Hills Brothers deep roasts the coffee beans to bring out the richest coffee flavor from deep inside the bean.
Love that Hills Brothers coffee.
Hills Brothers coffee tastes as good as it smells.
Did you forget the taste of strawberries? Fresh California strawberries? All the sweet, luscious things you can bake with strawberries. Or all the cool, refreshing things you can serve strawberries over, or around, or in. In case you forgot, California strawberries are here at last. Wouldn't it be a shame if you missed them?
As this day is Good Friday, perhaps you could give us some light on the significance of Good Friday.
Well, it certainly is one of the high holy days of the Christian churches. I think perhaps a shift in emphasis is taking place now in the Roman Catholic Church especially, away from an understanding of Good Friday as some kind of historical remembrance when we try to feel sad about what happened to Jesus, to rather a celebration of his victory over death, which is already anticipating Easter. There are some very, very significant lines, however, in some of the hymns of Good Friday, which speak of Jesus reigning from the tree, or the cross as a throne. All that element of victory over death, in death, is very much part of the Good Friday service.
A little earlier this afternoon, Bill and I were looking through the rule book for the Benedictine monks, and some of the rules seemed rather harsh. For example, no laughing. That's a very cruel paraphrase, but you know, sort of.
No, but it's an accurate quotation.
But at the heart of it, you were saying they're still relevant for the monks.
Very, very much, I think. One of the significant features of the rule, when it's read in the context of the 6th century, is that it was looked upon, and in fact I think intended, as a very moderate document. Monasticism at that time in the church was characterized by extreme rigor, almost a kind of competition to see who could fast the longest or who could go the longest without sleep. Benedict comes along and proposes a moderate observance that would be accessible to all Christians, in fact. For example, Benedict says that at the main meal, 2 cooked dishes should be provided for the monks, so that in case they don't like one, they can eat the other.
Well, that's very liberal.
Exactly, exactly. At that period, I think he would have been looked upon as hopelessly lax. For instance, he referred to Benedict's rule that the monks not laugh. From what I've been able to gather from studies that I've done on the rule, laughter perhaps might be better translated as ribaldry, that a kind of coarse jesting has no place in the life of a monk.
Are there other communities that are more strict than the Benedictine still?
Oh, yes. Generally, I think you would perhaps refer to such communities as the Trappists. Some people know of Thomas Merton, perhaps the most well-known American Trappist monk who died 10 years ago. But those are generally attempts to interpret the rule of Benedict more literally and more strictly.
The graduate school is rather new here at St. John's University, isn't it?
As a graduate school, yes, although from the very beginning, St. John's, in its seminary program, was in fact involved in graduate theological studies, in other words, studies after college. The graduate program, as such, began through a joint venture with the College of St. Benedict, actually with the Convent of St. Benedict, which was involved in graduate theological studies for sisters.
How long has the university been coeducational with St. Benedict's?
In terms of classes that are offered since the early 60s.
That's probably exciting, an exchange for both campuses.
Yes,
as well.
very, very much.
Broadens everyone's horizons. It's a lovely campus. Do the students have much interaction with the monks?
Yes, in fact, they do. One of the things that visitors here frequently mention is that, for instance, at the 5 o'clock daily Mass, the Eucharist, there are always a large number of students present, anywhere from 70 to 100 to even more now during the season of Lent.
You're where you want to be. You're colorless, sugar-free. Diet right. Diet right. Ooh, delight. Ooh, delight. Dynamite.
Diet Right Cola.
1 ounce of Total has 100% of the recommended daily allowance of all these important vitamins and iron.
Okay.
I'll pour this leading natural cereal. Stop me when you think the vitamin value equals Total's.
Right there.
Not yet.
That's it.
Nope.
Hey, that's a lot.
It takes at least 16 ounces of the leading natural cereals to equal the vitamins in 1 ounce of fortified Total.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
That's the total difference.
Henry's new cucumber and onion yogurt dressing can turn a bunch of salad fixings into something wonderful. And it's made with yogurt, so it's 90% fat-free. Henry's cucumber and onion turns plain salad into a feast. Try Henry's new cucumber and onion and pour yourself a feast.
We hope that you've enjoyed taking a look at the Abbey Church here at St. John's University. Right now, Bill and I are standing in the baptistry. This is the baptismal fountain behind us. Beautiful sculpture of St. John the Baptist. Lovely area, isn't it?
It is indeed, and it's interesting too how enriching one can find the experience, no matter what your own particular religious background. As it happens, neither Cindy nor I are Catholic, but both of us have found this a very rewarding and enriching experience. We hope you have too. Remember, St. John's Abbey, always open to visitors at Collegeville, Minnesota. We'll see you on Monday on Midday.
Have a lovely Easter.
This is some dessert. Crunchy coconut cake. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Bakers.
Delicious coconut pie. Thanks, dear.
Thanks, Bakers.
These coconut macaroons are yummy. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Bakers.
Families love fresh-tasting coconut, and because Baker's tastes fresher than any other national